Welcome, heroes, to my first VRChat tutorial. So this one is going to be covering a little thing I found out recently called the, which I'm calling the infinite gesture system. Technically, it's not infinite. It only allows for as much as a VRChat would load up in terms of memory, but theoretically, it can allow you no limit to how many gestures that you wanted. Now, the prerequisites for understanding what we're going over here, because I'm not going to be covering everything that's going to be in this tutorial. I'll be doing more tutorials in the future to cover those specific areas. But the specific things that you probably should understand is how to do a gesture, just a basic gesture, the concept of multi-tier gestures. So the idea here is I have a tree, and that would be enabled with one gesture, and the gesture inside would be enabled with the other. So I'll cover that in a tutorial as well, but multi-tier gestures, as well as some basics on animation. So understanding how the keyframing works and how to add animations, things like that, how to add a controller and things like that. I'll try to cover what I can, but I'm not going to go in depth on those concepts. So just understand that I'll be doing tutorials in the future. You could ask about them in the comment section below, but I'm not going to go extensively on it. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of this, as you will. So in order for this to work, what you require is an animator that plays, that as it cycles will stop at some point. The animators themselves will actually trigger the individual trees that you want, so that way when you fire off a gesture, it'll only fire off the ones in the current state it's in. And we're going to be using state machines in order to accomplish that. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is on your armature, you want to go ahead and add components, and you want to add an animator. I've already got anime and this, look, I like anime, all right? Don't worry about it. Okay, so we got an animator inside the armature. The reason for this is because we could use a gesture on our base animator to actually trigger things with this animator. The key here is we want an animator that plays and then stops based on a gesture. And the way it'll stop is it'll basically, the gesture will turn it on. So it'll cycle, and then the gesture will then turn it, once you let go of the gesture, it'll turn off and stay where it is in the cycle. So we got ourselves an animator. We're gonna have to make a controller. So let's go ahead and make a animation controller. Let's just call this the state machine. Because effectively what these things are is they're a state machine. Don't worry about my spelling, it's fine. I might misspell here and there. I don't even know if I misspelled. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so the state machine will pretty much just control it. Here we go. So we grab that, plop it onto there, and we got a state machine. So when you, in order to actually view this, you have to click the animator, and right here, this is our state machine, where we can actually add the individual animations. So in order for this flow to work, it's gonna enter in through here, it's gonna cycle into a state, and then it's gonna continue to cycle as long as it's on. So what I like to do is I like to have the first state to basically be clear. The idea here is that we're not sure of what state we're in. We want to make sure to clear all the states to return back to normal. And the other key thing here that I want to mention is you want to turn write defaults off. What this is supposed to do, it's not 100% consistent, but for the most part, it works for the context of as the animation goes, if write defaults is off, it will not write it back to its default state. So as it continues to flow, it's going to leave it in the state it was before, which is going to be kind of key in order to leave it in the state we want it to. So we got the clear state here. So the way this is going to work for what I have, as I mentioned before, I'm going to activate a tree and I'm going to activate a gesture inside. But we need to make sure that the actual trees are activated. So for the clear, we want to make sure that they're off. So we go to animations, we're going to create our first one. We'll call this clear. And with this, we want to make sure all of the trees are off. So let's go ahead and we got that. Yeah, okay, we could just select it. All right, so we're gonna just do a few of these. I got a bunch that are on here because it's on my base avatar, but we don't need all these. We'll just work with 3 of them. We got fire, frost, and lightning because I got most stuff in there. All right, so turn animation on, click that to actually get a toggle, and then we want to make sure they're off, so we toggle them off. Let's go ahead and grab the left hand as well. Frost, lightning, and bada bing, bada boosh. And then we got that. And now we want this to run for not too long, like a good 1/10 of a second's fine. Base gestures, you always want them to be 2 frames just to make sure they're in sync with the base animator. For this is going to be our own animator, so we don't have to worry about that as much. But you do want a little leeway for when we get into the next topic, which is the transition from one state into another. So let's go ahead and create our next state. So yeah, just so we're clear, all this is going to do is clear it out. It'll give it like a partial second, so you kind of see that it's cleared out. But yeah, okay. So now we got the next state. We're gonna have this one activate our fire state. So while this state is in effect, all of our gestures will be mapped to our fire control. So this fire tree right here. Once we get to the end, you'll see why the gestures will actually fire off in the tree. Effectively, when I activate a gesture, I'll activate this. As long as the tree is not on, it won't fire off. But since it will be in the fire state will turn the tree on, which means the gesture will fire this off. And why did I zoom out? That's fine. It'll fire it off, and then that gesture will actually, shoot and whatever. Okay, so we're in the fire, so let's go ahead and get the fire gesture to actually work. Create new, fire, bam. All right, so now we, wait, I don't need to add properties, that's fine. Okay, so animation, it created a fire for us, that's fine because I misspelled, whatever. Frickin' Unity, you want to tell me what to do. Okay, so we got the fire, and then we want it to fire. So we go in here. There we go. Okay, so it'll fire. We want this to last like a good duration because we want you to be able to react to it. So at the end here, we'll want it to turn off. So the idea is the animation starts, it turns on, and then it gets to here and it turns off. A thing I also like to do here is add a little bit of a buffer. So while this double hits this means that during this time as it's transitioning to the last frame, there's no chance that this frame won't get hit. This is probably an unnecessary step, but it's the way I like to make sure that the trees that are on get turned off. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make sure to repeat this for each of the other elements. So I'm just gonna do that real quick. Okay, so now we got our 3 animations. So let's go ahead and make sure that they flow into each other. So this is the part where with a state machine, you actually control flow. So we got clear going into here. We're gonna go ahead and right click, do make transition, and then click on the fire. So what's gonna happen is upon entry, it'll hit clear and then transfer to fire. And then we'll make sure fire goes into lightning, and then lightning goes into frost, and then frost goes into fire. So as this starts, it'll go into clear, then go into fire, and then transition between all of them. Remember to check these and turn right defaults off. And now we have the start of our actual state machine, which should have 3 states, fire, lightning, and frost. So let's go ahead and test this, make sure that it's actually cycling between them. Apparently I had my animator off for some reason. Must have clicked that. Okay, so now we turn it on, and there we go. Now it's actually flowing. So one of the things you might see, and it kind of happened a little quickly there, but if you see our trees, they're turning on, but they're not turning off, which is a bit of a problem. And the way you actually fix that is with the transitions between one to the next. Oh, and there's also another thing I forgot that we need to put to the animations themselves. It's best if they don't loop. You could potentially make a way for them to work while looping, but the way I like to have these is they don't loop because I don't want them to play again and play the first frame as I'm transitioning from one frame to the next, or not frame, one state to the next. Okay, so yeah, we hit play, and the easiest way to do this is with each of these, we want to make sure that they clear the next one, so you want to make sure that the last frame gets hit. So you do that by just kind of shifting this over until this is about 50% coverage on here. The reason this works this way is because this is pretty much, as it's transitioning, lowering the weight of this animation and increasing the weight of this animation. Weights pretty much tell Unity which one has more priority for animations as it's being played. So since we're doing a toggle system, we want the weight of these animations to work instead of just not working, because that'd be annoying. All right, so with this, it looks like we got fire is actually turning off. So we just have to repeat this process for each of them. Remember, the key here is that you need at least 50% of this exposed. So we do that, and then we do that, and it's pretty easy just to get done. And there we go. Now as it's flowing, each tree is turning on and off. So that is the perfect setup for us to go into the next step. So now for the next step, what we require is manipulations on the Jester level. So the easiest way to do this, of course, is to create a duplicate of your base here, so that way the animations don't mess up your base avatar. It's the reasoning is just because it likes to forget to write back to default, or at least the A pose. I think might not be a default. I don't know. It's something specific, but it's easiest just to make sure you create a duplicate of your avatar and then go from there. So we got our base avatar, and in order for us to actually have a animation to work with, what we need is an animation override controller. So this gesture override is going to be the one that we use on our armature. So we go in, find animation. No, I think it's like avatar control template. There it is. Okay, so now we got our control template, and we can use that to apply onto our avatar. And then from there, we can then start creating animations to actually apply it to our override. Okay, so we create a new animation, because it's the easiest way to apply it. So for this one, this will be the toggle states. So this is the Jester, which we're going to map to actually toggling between each state. So this will activate our state machine that we created. I'm going to put that to hand open. I use the Vive hand open is kind of the easiest for me to use as a cycler. On Oculus, you might vary. It's pretty much preference. I would just recommend tying it to different things and seeing how each one works. Okay, so for this one, and this is going to be a key here. So if you want to actually toggle the animator, what you're gonna immediately notice, if you just go to adding a property, the animator doesn't have something that will actually enable it. It just pretty much has animations that are in it. Go figure, animator has animations. But yeah, there's no way to actually toggle the animator itself. Now, the thing is, you don't necessarily want to do a toggle on the armature itself, because if you just turn off the armature, then you might actually make, problems happen. For me, I have my hat inside the armature, so it'd disappear. However, in order to make this work, you want to first actually create a toggle on the armature. The reason for this is because we're going to go into the animation file itself and manipulate it, and we're going to use the armature as a basis. There's probably other ways you could also add this, like there's other examples out there, like a toggle system, where you can use that to grab the information as well. But I find this, like, if you don't have all that stuff and you're starting from scratch, this is the quickest way to actually get this to work. So we created this, so it has a toggle on the armature. Remember, like I said, we're not going to actually use it that way, but we're going to use this to actually edit. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. Show and explore. And right now I have my animations mapped to Visual Studios. So we're going to go ahead and get the toggle states animation and open it up. And here we are. This is pretty much what your animation looks like. A lot of just numbers. Now, the thing you'll note is that there will be two curves tied to the toggle that you made. The reason is because it separates the information from the window here, this window here, this animation window, and also the curves. It has to make information for both of them. So we're just gonna pretty much just switch it for both. So we wanna change two things here. One of them is gonna be the class ID. You wanna set class ID to 8. The reason for this is because there is a area, if you look up Unity class IDs for animations, you'll find a code list for what these class IDs are actually mapped to. And this one is attached to behavior. So we have this targeting the armature. It's going to change the class ID to 8. The problem is behavior does not have an is active. It has a enabled. So you want to change this to enabled. Now, very important thing here. Do not misspell. Do not miscapitalize, because that is very important for it to actually comprehend what you're doing here. So we'll go ahead and save that. So now it's mapped to behavior and is set to is enabled. So now we go back to our animation here. Switch it back to toggle state, and hey, look, presto, we have a behavior enabled. Now we'll go ahead and set that to on. make sure that it turns our animator on. Because what we want is we want the animation to start when we push the button. You could do this in many other ways, but this is to kind of give you a premise to how to get this started. So we got this, we push the button, it'll turn on our states to actually start switching. However, we're gonna have to now actually add a animation which will actually do something, because switching states itself could actually have a lot of benefits. You can basically make it customize your avatar. So at this state, you can hold the button and it's like, okay, now I have yellow hair, now I have blue hair, now I have a different outfit or whatever. Anything that you can map from the armature. But the thing is, we don't want to just do that. We want to like fire off stuff. So let's create a new animation. And we'll call this spray. This will be mapped to my spray animations that I have on my avatar's magic stuff. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and have this activate the individual spells in all fire, frost, and lightning. So while in whatever state it's in, it's going to fire off the spray no matter what, but unless the tree is enabled, it won't fire off. So let's go ahead and switch this back to, oh yeah, that's right, we have to map it. Let's just do that real quick. Finger point. Okay, so now we got spray, so let's go ahead and map it. Now, since we have this armature here, it's gonna kind of pull us away from it. A little trick I have found to get around that, if you still want to do the whole click this to make things enabled, to make things a lot faster, you just, while this is selected, just control select all the ones that you want. Because it won't be able to add any information for disabling your base armature, so it's not going to. And then you could just go ahead and select, and then Kerpow. Well, I don't know why the icon's different, but you know what, it's fine. It should be activating them. Okay, so now we have everything in place to actually activate these gestures in different states. Now, obviously, I could add a lot more, but this is just to give you an idea of how the concept works. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and test it. One of the things I wanted to point out is make sure all your stuff is set up in the way that you expect. Like, make sure if you're gonna toggle your animator on, make sure it's off, and also make sure that your individual trees, the moves that you're gonna be using, make sure they're off as well. So then we're going to go ahead and go in. We currently have our base animator to set the left hand's weight is at 1. That means that you're holding down some button on the left hand. It is currently mapped to 1, which is open palm. So what that should do is start cycling our states. And then with our right hand, we'll go ahead and turn it on when it actually happens. So we'll go ahead and push play. All right, so we push play. We're going to go ahead and make our right gesture tied to 2. And go ahead and turn that on. As you can see, this is now firing off. If we actually turned our left hand off, it'll actually stay in the state that it was in. Turn it on, start cycling, turn it off, it's in the different states. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit extra on here just to make sure that we can actually visually see what's going on. So, something that's gonna be good to make sure that you know what state you're currently in is you're gonna wanna add some kind of visual indicator to indicate what element that you're currently in or what state that you're currently in. So for me, I have a little gem here on my bracer. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that on, and we're gonna go ahead and add from this gem a change in color. So for this state, we'll go ahead and make it change to red. So when it goes in, it will change to red. And then we'll go ahead and switch over to lightning. Lightning will go ahead and switch to purple. And then we're going to go ahead and have this. Oh, I didn't have the thing on. 1 second. There we go. Switch you to purple. Yeah, make sure you hit the animation button before going into these things. And then we'll go ahead and add on to the last one, which is frost. We'll make this a light blue. So there we go. We have a good indication that they're actually going to be changing states. Okay, so I went in and make sure all the stuff is set up and ready to test. The animator in your armature needs to be off. I added a gem color change for both the left and the right wrist. So that way, as things change, you'll actually see what state it's in. I made sure that all of the stuff on my armature is set to off that I'm going to be using. So you can see frost is off, that is off, and everything is set for test. Okay, so now when we hit play, currently I have the base animator set. So that way it is set as if you were holding the left the left hand open. So you can see palm is open, gesture is at 1, and the weight is up. So if we go ahead and take a look, you'll see that the animation for the wrist is now changing. So if I change the weight to 0, it is now locked in on whatever state it was in. Then we turn it back on. I gotta make sure that I do this quick enough. So that should be on lightning. So as you can see, we are now on lightning. So if we activate our right hand, set this to 2, which is our spray jester, turn it on, and bam, we're now firing lightning. Okay, so that is everything set up. Let's go ahead and see how it works in VRChat. All right, now we're in VRChat with our current system set up. As you can see, I am holding down the open hand button, which I don't have an animation on it, so it's just kind of doing that. And it is cycling my gestures. I can let it go, and bam. I do the finger point. Do the finger point, and there we go. It looks like it, the transition betweens might need a little tweaking, but overall we got lightning, frost, and fire. So we got all of the states that we need, and there you go. We got the system going. Now, as you can see, I can switch between these states, just hold it there, and then start firing, which means that all my other gestures are just basically mapped to whatever I want at that time. The other thing I should note, because of Vive, the way the open hand works, it's probably a good idea to like hold down the open hand and do the trigger, or just map it to a different gesture, but that's pretty much just Vive issues. The Oculus might vary with how this works, but I wanted to show you a little more like extensive where this could go, just to show like you can truly expand on how many gestures you want. So for this one, I have mine cycling between different elements. I got air here, and then I could just continue to cycle between air, frost, water, earth, arcane, and as I'm holding on, I have more gestures within it. So for my current system, I can have up to 5 gestures per element, and this could be expanded to more concepts as well. Like you could potentially use an emote to toggle the animator to a certain extent, so basically it just turns it on for a duration and then off. So that way you just click an emote and it'll automatically set it to whatever you need. Or maybe you can create an animation system with parameters, which I'll cover in a future tutorial episode. Yeah, that might be a good one. If you guys are interested in the idea of utilizing an emote to make a system where it basically would just emote to a certain state, I could probably figure something out with that. But in the future, I plan to do more tutorials on the simpler concepts, just so that way I can build anybody who doesn't like understand the underlying concepts all the way up to this level. Now, as you can see with how this is currently set up, it has the one fault of you have to wait to get to the state that you want, but it's a good compromise to actually adding however many gestures you want. Now, I mentioned this is an infinite gesture system. The only limitations is not the system itself, but what you can apply it to, which is VRChat. If they ever expand the amount of space you can upload, it can probably expand how much you can do. And you can also probably, even if there's a limitation on states, you can probably like expand beyond that with substates, which allow you to do a lot more states within it. There's a lot of potential applications you can go with it from here. So let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions. I know I can kind of ramble a little bit. So any questions, I will answer it as fast as I can. And anything that you would like to know for the future, let me know in the comment section below. But anyways, guys, thank y'all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time. Take care and goodbye.